What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV, and this is the last entry of this long project I've been doing as far as top 10 by position. I know everybody doesn't agree with every listing. I even have some trepidations about some picks I've made. It's a few of them. Maybe I could put another guy here or there. Uh, but for the most part, 95% of what I presented, I strongly believe that's where that person should be. And nowhere do I feel stronger at number one than Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Okay, Wilt Chamberlain is the most dominant center of all time. There's no question about that. Uh, but I feel that Kareem has the strongest resume by far of any center. Um, and when you look at that, there's no question you have to put him in this stratosphere. Julius Erving, Isaiah Thomas, even though he used to say differently before, I know he used to say differently before, and various others, Oscar Robertson is another one. Um, they all believe that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is the GOAT. There has been, without a doubt, a serious agenda against Kareem and centers in general to minimize their impact on the game. You know, someone could call me paranoid, but when that ESPN poll came out, which showed Jordan being the greatest college player, let me know then and there what we're dealing with right now. Okay, there's no doubt that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is the greatest college player of all time, and for Skip Bayless to even voice opposition to that shows that he's an opinionated dickhead and has no real credibility left. Okay, other than LeBron hate angle. But back to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Um, I mean, he's more than the league record 6 MVPs, the 6 championships, which equals Jordan, the 10 final appearances, all-time leading scorer still, at least for another couple of years. Uh, I mean, he was great for so long without the help of PEDs. I'm just saying, no performance-enhancing drugs in that era, not widely. And he went up against so many great centers. No player I can really think of has matched up with so many Hall of Famers. Remember when he first came to the league, you still had your Willis Reeds, you had Wilt Chamberlain, you had Walt Bellamy, Zelmo Beatty, a little later on, Artis Gilmore. Jack Sikma, and of course later on he went against Moses Malone. But then he played into the 80s, so he played against, toward the end of his career, the Patrick Ewings, David Robinsons, the Keem and Dream Olajuwons, the Ralph Sampsons when he did play center position, and various others. You know, nobody has really gone against the number of big men that he has, and most of the time, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar prevailed. Now, there were some centers, usually bruisers, who gave him problems. Um, Especially earlier on in his career when he was only 225, 230 pounds. But over his career, he did bulk up to over 250. And as a matter of fact, toward the end of his career, he was as big as 265 to make him a little bit more durable and to give back some more of the punishment that he was taking. But Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was not a power guy. He wasn't a bruiser. He was a finesse guy. Okay, but he possessed the most dominating shot, the most unstoppable shot in the history of the NBA, the skyhook. Um, Phenomenal player. It wasn't his only shot. Some people have this misperception that that's the only thing he had in his repertoire. No, he could score in various other ways. He had a jump shot, but that was his most unstoppable weapon. And if there's a move that people can't stop, of course you're going to use it, frequently. But not only was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar a great singular player, and this is, I think, what separates him from other great centers. Whereas you can make a slight argument with Wilt that as dominant and as great as he was individually, and I've given reasons as to why he didn't win as much as he should have, but still the fact remains he didn't win as much as you would expect him to win, being that dominant. And you have the other argument where with Bill Russell, well, of course he won a lot because he had so much help around him, but individually, you don't see a very dominant player all around. Defensively, yes. Great team leader, yeah. Offensively, a lot of holes. With Kareem, there was no hole. He shot a career 55.9% from the floor, and that includes the down years. Averaged 24.6 points per game for his career, 11.2 rebounds. But when you look at his prime numbers, if you take away the last 3 years of his career, when he was 40, 41, 42 years old, you just take away those years, his numbers go up. His career averages go way up to around 26 and 12, if I'm not mistaken. And if you go all the way back to the early 80s, when he started his decline period slowly over there, well, at least his production went down. His career numbers were over 28 points and 14 rebounds per game. Just simply phenomenal averages for a career that had been going on for well over a decade. So people forget just how dominant Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was. Um, when he retired in 1989, he was the all-time leader in points. He was, at the time, third in rebounds. He's fourth now when you combine the ABA and NBA. And he was the all-time leader in shot blocks. Now, there's always an asterisk attached to that with his 3,000, what is it, 100 and, is it 87 or 89 blocks? One of the two. There's always an asterisk, I think it's 189. There's always an asterisk attached to that because for the first 4 years of his career, blocks were not kept. And if they were, it's more than likely that he would have exceeded 4,000 blocks in his career. And depending upon whenever the league would have started blocks, let's say they started in the year he came in, then Kareem would be the all-time leader in block shots, although the real leader is most likely Wilt Chamberlain, followed by Bill Russell, I said Strom Thurmond, Jesus. Strom Thurmond, running for president of the United States, America. Mac need to go back to where it was when segregation. These niggas had their place. They knew their place in segregation. Yeah, that's why I wrote President of the United States. They ran for President of the United States. I'm sorry. I know a lot of young people don't get that reference. Nate Thurmond, okay. And then maybe, I don't know, George Mikan, maybe. I don't know. But anyway, getting back on the point, man. Kareem won on all levels: high school, collegiate, professional. When you look at basketball as a whole, you have to almost call him the GOAT of basketball. Jordan may be NBA, basketball, it's Kareem, and it's really not much of an argument if you really look at his career. Um, he's probably the most dominant high school player we've ever seen. I know some people will say LeBron and might name some other people. It's probably Kareem. Um, his Power Memorial team probably could have contended with collegiate teams, you know, at that time. Um, Maybe even give some of the poorer NBA teams a run for their money. Then in college, he's the most dominant college player ever. And no disrespect to Bill Walton, who's top two or three collegiately, but Kareem Abdul-Jabbar started that powerhouse in UCLA. He was so dominant in college that they got rid of the dunk to slow him down, which only made him a more skilled big man because he focused more on his fundamentals, and doing things without having to resort to the power game. And then in the pros, he completely turned around the Milwaukee Bucks franchise, and within 2 seasons, won an NBA championship with the help, of course, of Oscar Robertson. Then, of course, years later, with the Los Angeles Lakers, after some struggles, when he teamed up with Magic, and of course, then they got James Worthy, they were a dynasty, the dynasty of the 1980s. The only team in the 1980s to win back-to-back championships. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was born Louis Alcindor in 1947 in New York City. And from a young age, from a very, very young age, the youngest age possible, he showed that he was going to be a man of exceptional size, weighing 12 pounds and being 22 inches long when he was born. By age 9, he was 5'8", and by age 13, he was 6'8" and could already dunk a basketball. Alcindor began his record-breaking basketball career when he was in high school, where he led racist-ass coach Jack Donahue's Power Memorial Academy team to 3 straight New York City Catholic championships, a 71-game winning streak, and a 79-2 overall record. This earned him a nickname, the Tower from Power. His 2,067 total points were a New York City high school record. The team won the National High School Boys Basketball Championship when Alcindor was in 10th and 11th grade and was runner-up his senior year. Maybe Alcindor was dogging it because he had a strained relationship in his final year with Donahue after the coach called him nigger. I'm not going to say N-word. Called him a nigger. I can say it. Alcindor was one of only 4 players who started on 3 NCAA championship teams. The others all played for Wooden at UCLA. Henry Bibby, Curtis Rowe, and Lynn Shackelford. Alcindor did not play during his first year at UCLA because at the time freshmen were ineligible to play their freshman year. This rule did not break until 1972. Now 7'1", he made his debut as a sophomore in 1966 and received national coverage. Sports Illustrated described him as the new superstar after he scored 56 points in his first game, which set a UCLA single game record. He was the main contributor to the team's 3-year record of 88 wins and only 2 losses, one to University of Houston, in which Alcindor had an eye injury, and the other to crosstown rival USC, who played a, quote, stall game. There was no shot clock in those days, so a team could hold the ball as long as they wanted before attempting to score. During his college career, Alcindor was twice named Player of the Year, 67 and 69, and was a 3-time first-team All-American, 1967 through 1969. Played on 3 NCAA basketball championship teams, 67, 68, and 69, and was honored as the most outstanding player in the NCAA tournament 3 times and became the first ever Naismith College Player of the Year in 1969. In 67 and 68, he was also the USBWA College Player of the Year, which later became the Oscar Robertson Trophy. Alcindor became the only player to win the Helms Foundation Player of the Year award 3 times. The dunk was banned in college basketball after the 1967 season, primarily because of Alcindor's dominant use of the shot. The rule was not rescinded until the 1976-77 season, which was shortly after Wooden's retirement. Oh, how spiteful they were. During his junior year, Alcindor suffered a scratched left cornea on January 12, 1968. I said on January 12th, 68, the game against those some bitches. That some bitch. No, January 12th, 1968, in the game against Cal, when he was struck by Tom Henderson in a rebound battle. He would miss the next two games against Stanford and Portland. This happened right before the showdown game against Houston. His cornea would again be scratched during his pro career, which subsequently caused him to wear goggles for eye protection. At the time, the NBA did not allow college underclassmen to declare early for the draft. He completed his studies and earned a Bachelor of Arts degree with a major in history in 1969. In his free time, he practiced martial arts. He studied Jeet Kune Do under the legendary Bruce Lee. On January 20th, 1968, Alcindor and the UCLA Bruins faced Coach Guy Lewis's Houston Cougars in the first ever nationally televised regular season college basketball game, with nearly 53,000 in attendance at the Astrodome. Cougar forward Elvin Hayes scored 39 points and had 15 rebounds, while Alcindor, who suffered from a scratch on his left cornea, was held to just 15 points as Houston won 71-69. The Bruins' 47-game winning streak ended in what has been called the game of the century. During the summer of 1968, Alcindor took the Shahada twice and converted to Sunni Islam from Catholicism. He adopted their Arabic name, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, though he did not begin using it publicly until 1971. He boycotted the 1968 Summer Olympics by deciding not to try out for the United States men's Olympic basketball team, who went on to easily win the gold medal. Alcindor's decision to stay home during the 1968 games was in protest of the unequal treatment of African Americans in the United States. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar still shares or holds a number of individual records at UCLA, which include highest career scoring average, 26.4, most career field goals, 943, which is tied with Don McLean, most points in a season, 870, highest season scoring average, 29, most field goals in a season, 346, most free throws attempted in a season, 274, most points in a single game, 61, most field goals in a single game, 26 versus Washington State, February 25th of 1967. Now, if I remember correctly, I don't want to be too detailed because I don't want to have to have this video run as long as I did with the Chamberlain one. I think it was a flip coin decision as far as the number one pick with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in the '69 draft, and I think it came down to it was two young franchises, the Milwaukee Bucks and the Phoenix Suns, and Milwaukee won out, and he turned around that team, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Um, I think the year prior they won something like 27 games or something like that. I believe. I want to say they won 27 or 29 games the year prior, the 68-69 season. Kareem's first year there, they won 56 games. And of course, Kareem won Rookie of the Year his first year in the NBA. And for the next couple of years, Kareem was the most dominant player in the NBA. Um, during back-to-back seasons, the 1970-71 and 71-72 seasons, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, as he was becoming known then, I think by 71-72, he officially changed his name from Abdul Hassan to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. But Kareem Abdul-Jabbar won two scoring titles in a row, and I believe the 71-72 season, he averaged a career high 34.8 points per game. Um, just a phenomenal player. He was the first player that Wilt Chamberlain said that he needed at times help to guard. Prior to that, Wilt did not need help guarding anybody. Now, some of it was because Wilt was older, not the same player, but no center had ever given him that type of challenge before. Um, before the 1970-71 season, the Bucks acquired the legendary Oscar Robertson. Oscar was a great individual player. Some will say the best all-around player in NBA history, uh, but he had not won a championship. Now, granted, on those Royals teams, he had some talent around him, but not sufficiently to the point where he could win a title. But now you had a great inside-outside game with those two. Plus, you had a good mid-range performer in Bob Dandridge, a very underrated performer, and a guy that you can kind of compare a little bit to Kawhi Leonard for his era. And the Milwaukee Bucks were able to win a championship in 1971. I believe they swept. Who did they sweep in the finals? I can't remember who they swept in the finals. I think it was the Bullets, if I'm not mistaken. I might be wrong about that. Ultimately, however, as the years progressed, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar became disenchanted and disillusioned with playing for the Milwaukee Bucks, and ultimately he requested a trade, and he was traded prior to the 19, I think 74-75 season, and it was actually one of the most. Or was it? I think it was prior to the 75-76 season. Excuse me. Prior to the 75-76 season, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was traded in one of the more lopsided trades in NBA history. And the problem with Kareem when he went to LA, he was still a dominant player, averaging 27 points and maybe 13, 14 rebounds per game. But the problem was, whenever you have a great center like Kareem, when you, and this is just from observation, when you don't have a dynamic perimeter player, it's easy for defenses to kind of trap the center. First of all, they have to get the ball. And if you have, you know what I'm saying, if you have a great defensive team, especially a great perimeter defensive team, you can kind of limit how many catches the big man gets. Or what you could do is you can let the big man get off, but then if you don't have anybody else that's dynamic, you can just shut everybody else down or limit the other players who really aren't dynamic primary scorers or dynamic threats anyway. So you usually either they just tried to contain Kareem in the playoffs, or they let Kareem go off and they had nobody else that's really a threat. And no disrespect to Norm Nixon, in the late '70s, he's a really good player, but he's not Magic Johnson. And also, they did have talent with Kareem, but there were guys that didn't, their games didn't mesh well with Kareem. For instance, Adrian Dantley. Adrian Dantley's a guy that, was a mid-range guy, can sometimes go in the post. Well, when you got Kareem there, a guy that's a dominant low post guy, the spacing's not right. So they're not a good mix, a good fit. So Kareem was great individually, winning league MVPs, but the Lakers weren't winning anything. Then comes Magic Johnson. All right, here comes Magic Johnson, who's the right piece for Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, a dynamic big guard who was dangerous in the fast break, and also because of his extraordinary height, 6'8", 6'9", in the half court set, he could see things that the average point guard couldn't see. He could see things developing before the average point guard could. He had already had great court awareness and court sense and court vision. And man, the Lakers were just phenomenal. They had so many weapons. They acquired James Worthy over time. They acquired a broken down but still valuable Bob McAdoo. They had all these other pieces. Jamal Wilkes, Norm Nixon for a couple of years before he was traded to the Clippers. And but the leader was Kareem. And over the course of the 1980s, he was the leader of that team. Magic was the young dynamic star, but the respected veteran was Kareem. And they won championships in 1980, 82, 85, 87, and 88. And they tried to let Kareem go out with a bang in 89 with a championship. They were 11-0 going into the NBA Finals, the hottest team in basketball. And they weren't just beating pushovers, they were beating dangerous teams in the Western Conference. They were beating the dangerous, Phoenix Sun team, you know. And this was not a young Lakers team by any stretch of the imagination. But I think those long playoff runs had taken their toll on them. And Byron Scott went down with an injury before the finals. And during, I think, game one, Magic suffers a hamstring injury, which takes him out. And when you got Jeff Lamp as your starting point guard for the Lakers, you're in serious trouble. So Kareem was not able to go out with a seventh title, but he did go out universally respected and admired for an unparalleled NBA career. And when you look at his resume, it's it's pretty much unparalleled. A six-time NBA champion, a two-time NBA Finals MVP, 1971, and then that 1985 Finals MVP, where it looked like in Game One after the Boston Massacre, Memorial Day Massacre, sometimes called, it looked like Kareem was done as a player. He was 38 years old, but he's the oldest player to win Finals MVP, 1985. Six-time MVP. Okay, um, most ever. 19-time NBA All-Star, most ever. 10 times All NBA first team. 5 times All NBA second team. 5 times NBA All Defensive first team. 6-time NBA All Defensive second team. The 1969-1970 Rookie of the Year. The NBA All Rookie first team that year. A two-time NBA scoring champion. In 1971, I think he averaged 31.7 points per game. In 71, 72, 34.8 points per game. He was the NBA rebounding champion in 1975-76. Now, there are some people that will tell you that Kareem was not a great rebounder, but he did lead NBA rebounding, right? I think what it was, the reason, this is just my opinion. The reason why I think Kareem's rebounding went down during the 80s was a little bit of this. To preserve him more for scoring, because they had other guys that could rebound. Magic Johnson was a tremendous rebounder for his position. Then you had guys like A.C. Green, Michael Thompson, uh, um, Bob McAdoo. The Lakers were a big team. Um, who else am I forgetting to mention? Um, Kurt Rambis. Uh, geez, what's the guy's name, man? That was the general manager for a while. Him as well. I can't think of his name. The Lakers were a big team, so they had a lot of bigs that could rebound. That was their job. They had forwards like James Worthy that could rebound decently. They had enough guys that could bang, and that's what they did. So Kareem more or less was there for scoring. So his rebounding did tail off in the 80s. You know what I'm saying? But like I said, I think that was more or less because, and plus Kareem was not a banger per se. Early on, Kareem rebounded out of necessity. But when you have all these other guys who can rebound and that, and do all the dirty work, just save Kareem for scoring. Anyway, what else do I want to say? Four times led the NBA in blocks. He's on the 50th anniversary all-time team. His number 33 is retired by the Milwaukee Bucks and by the Lakers. Three-time NCAA champion, three-time NCAA Final Four most outstanding player, three-time National College Player of the Year, three-time consensus first-team All-American. His number 33 is retired by the UCLA Bruins. Three times first-team parade All-American, twice Mr. Basketball USA. He won the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2016. And as a head coach, he was a USBL champion in 2002 and an assistant coach, two-time NBA champion with the Lakers 2009, 2010. For his career, he averaged 24.6 points per game, 11.2 rebounds, 3.6 assists. He shot 56% from the floor for his career, 38,387 points, number one all time, 17,440 rebounds, fourth all time, if you include the ABA, third all time NBA. And he had 5,660 assists, which is a very high total for a center, the greatest center of all time, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.